Hey, Trevis Michelle.
Hey, Queen, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I am good. I'm trying to
Let me.
figure out why it's looking dark here.
I don't. I don't know. I can see you, but let me. While you're doing all of this, let me let you know I appreciate you rocking your natural lately. I noticed the switch up. I love it. I
Girl, it
love it.
wasn't on purpose. It wasn't on purpose.
Right. It doesn't matter what the reason was. I love whenever women just go with what they were given. I love it. That's just me. So I appreciate you doing that. But I also appreciate you taking the time to do this with me today. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited. Girl, let me tell you, you
We
don't
haven't done
know
it in
what
a
it
while.
took.
We have not done it in a while. So yeah, because it's been a few months that since we've been able to chat. But before I don't want people to get lost in it. But before we go on, those that joined in that haven't been on here before, just know that there's a button down at the bottom with a question mark on it. So if you have questions that you want to ask myself or Trevis Michelle, put it in the question mark so that way we don't get it lost in the chat. And once we get to a breaking point or whatever in our conversation, we'll make sure that your question gets addressed. So without further ado, let us go ahead and allow Mrs. Trevis Michelle to introduce herself. Who are you and what are you about and what is the premise of this conversation?
Hey, everybody, how are you doing? I am Trevis Michelle, #1 international best-selling author of Saving Lives While Fighting for Mine. Now, I hail from New York City. I'm a registered nurse by day, but I am now an authorpreneur. I tell my story as a woman of color going through the divorce process. Are you overwhelmed? Are you like deer in the headlights? I don't know what to do. Now, if you're in the Black community, you know who's telling you about divorce. I can tell you how to have a baby. I can tell you how to keep your man. I can tell you a whole lot of stuff, but nobody's around when it's time for a divorce, when that's the decision you made. Well, that's what happened to me. So I made it my duty that I am going to help women of color navigate this process, this thing called divorce. Because we don't have to go bleed all over everybody else all the time. We don't have to make our children suffer. We don't have to make the men that hurt us in our life suffer. Because, if truth be told, we did choose them at some point, right?
Hey.
So you need to be able to have the tools you need so that, one, we don't need to make the lawyers richer than they need to be, because it's cha-ching, cha-ching. Go back and forth. Go ahead. Tell him this, and then his lawyer tell him, yeah, you get it, right? So that's cha-ching, cha-ching. You need to keep that in your pocket. But while you're going through the divorce, it's so important that you heal, that you start the healing process. But when you know the rules to the game, you can be empowered, you can walk in your power, you can be confident, so that you come through this so that you can live the rest of your life on your terms.
So this is who Trevis Michelle is, right? So obviously making sure that you, as you say, boss up in the process of a divorce, it became something that's passionate to you because it's something that obviously you yourself experienced. So relationally, as far as like your marriage and everything, what was your background? What was your history that kind of got you to this point to where, you know what, now I'm going through a divorce and I'm experiencing all of these things, and I want better for the next group. Like, how did you end up in that space?
Well, #1, my parents divorced. And I don't like to say that anybody's a product of divorce, because we're not fruit. I don't look like a grape or something, right? So my parents went through a divorce, and they just totally took me out of the picture. They were so busy fighting. My mama, rest in peace, Mom, I love you, but she was that woman. Yeah. Yelling, screaming, cussing, the two of them, right? And so he didn't want to be bothered, because every time it was always an argument. So he chose not to be in my life except financially. And I sat on my bed one day and I swore, I said, God, I am going to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife. I'm going to have the perfect kids. I'm going to have the perfect family. I'm never getting a divorce, right? Because I had this in my head because of what I was going through. And let me tell you, I had the Rolls Royce when I got married. I had that husband that I traveled all over the world, had my mink coat. I had stuff on the outside. Everybody thought it was great. Mm-hmm. And it was, until it wasn't. But see, I was 32 and a half years younger than him. I was his third wife. So having our children, he had me so young that he was trying to mold me and groom me the way he wanted to. But at some point you grow up.
Yeah.
And during that process, his friends started talking to him. That's why I tell you about your circle. Your circle's so important. And they started, yeah, she gonna leave you. She gets that degree as a nurse, blah, blah, blah. I left him before that. He never paid a dime. I paid my own way through. All right. But when I decided to leave, that aha moment when this is it, I had enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I need better for my kids. I thought back to where my mother or how my mother and my father acted, and I refused to do that. So I decided to break the generational curse, that I wasn't going to be that angry woman of color that's, you know what, he ain't paid me to have sex with him, so he doesn't have to pay to see his children. He has to pay to support his children, but not to see his children. And so I just went through the process, and going to court, the judge sitting up there telling me in front of a packed courthouse that it's my fault probably that we got the divorce because they were the same age and I was a young one. Him calling CPS on me 3 times, trying to run me over with a car, had to have him arrested. I mean, y'all don't know. So when people look at me and they're like, oh, what have you been through? You just don't know. I don't look like my struggle. But I decided there are other women who are going through, who are feeling beat down, angry, traumatized. But I'm sorry, you can't, that's not, I'm not saying you're not going to try to get me, but I can't give you that power and control over my life.
Yeah.
And so I had to stand up. But fortunately, I wear these pearls in honor of my grandma. My grandparents, who have been married forever, supported me. And they actually helped pay for my divorce, because divorce, I had this 3 years, 3 attorneys. Ooh. And I was in nursing school. So where was I getting some money? Because he had money. And that was the other thing. He had the money. The attorneys started talking to each other. So that's why I had to. So I was like, okay, I now know how to vet an attorney. I know the questions you have to have. I know what, documentation you need. I know how to navigate it, because you don't use the attorney as your psychologist, your psychotherapist, as your social worker, and there's some things I had to give up in order to get out, because I needed my sanity. Oh, yeah. So it was like, you know what? I can always work and get more money. I can always get more material things, but I don't know if I'm going to work back if I'm in a crazy house. So, and my children need to be healthy. And he's a good father, but he just wasn't a good husband.
Something that you're talking about that I think a lot of us overlook, and I want to bring it up at this point, because you mentioned, money, and of course, going back and forth for the lawyers, back and forth with the lawyers, and making sure that y'all are in effective communication and whatnot. And of course, if the lawyers know that money is involved, they're going to try and drag it out as long as possible. Something that I feel like so many people feel like is only for the rich and famous, that we don't employ whenever we deal with our own relationships, is a prenuptial agreement. I am on board for it. I don't care how broke you are. I don't care how rich you are. Let these ground rules be set up in the very beginning, regardless of how much money you do or don't have, how much assets you do or don't have. Absolutely. Whatever the plan is, sit down at a table and say, babe, hey, look, I love you, but let's be real about things. Let's walk in reality, because there's some people who say, oh no, prenups is basically saying that you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay, but are you setting yourself up, to die? Are you setting yourself up for your car to have problems? No, but like, these are things that actually happen. So right. Be ready. That's like telling somebody, don't set up a will because, oh, you're asking for death. No, right. Like, I want to make sure, right. Heaven forbid, worst case scenario happens, my children are cared for. Like, nobody is running around here trying to stress and strain about what happens with my children. My plans are already set. So sit down and have that conversation, so you're right. Not going through that battle back and forth of, what belongs to who gets what, who did what. Now, granted, you can put the stipulations of, adultery or emotionally abandoning the marriage. You can put whatever it is that you want in a prenuptial agreement. It's yours. But right. People think that applies to wealth only. No, it applies to everything. Any and everything going into a marriage that can be argued over, that can be disputed. You put that in there to allow yourself for a little bit of sanity, because as someone herself who has gone through divorce, now granted, I didn't have, 20 and 30 years of marriage under my belt with any of them. But the reality is that I had my emotions tied up into right. Them. I had a family with them. I had kids with my first 2 husbands. So there were things that we had to go through, and people think that because I initiated the divorces, And I was doing it all myself. Like, I didn't go through lawyers. I was like, I'm not doing, like, I'm smart enough. I know paperwork. I know how to get this done. I'm not paying for a lawyer. And I actually had to go up against, you know, him with his lawyer. Well, one of the marriages, his lawyer. But it's really not that difficult. Like, but the emotional part of it, just the knowledge of, you know, my family is not what it was that I wanted it to be. You have this vision of what's supposed to happen. And then when it doesn't, that emotional toll, that mental toll, regardless of whether you, regardless of whether you ask for it or not, it happens. And a lot of us don't address the mental part of it. Everybody's focused on, you know, just the custody of the children, and they're focused on the money. They're not thinking about mentally what that does to both of the individuals, but we're women, so we're going to focus on what it does to the women, especially if we have our children. If you have your children with you, you have to still maintain this household, this life, and you have to care for these children while you're breaking inside, because the life that you had is no more. And now you have to figure out what that looks like moving forward. And like you said, in the Black community, they can tell you any and everything under the sun, but there's a lot of people who can't necessarily tell you like what divorce looks like and what that process feels like, how to use resource, you know, what resources we do or don't have at our disposal to make it through that.
Yeah, because you know what? I always tell people, this is chess, it ain't checkers. And when you know what, for instance, now I love cars, right? I'm real girly girl. You say I got my eyelashes on and everything, but I love cars. So I have a rally car. But when I go and step in, if I'm a female, I have to make sure that I know how much the car is, because I don't believe in buying a brand new car. I want one a year older, because let somebody else pay the taxes. So I want to know how much is the blue book value, how many miles, I'm kicking the tires, I'm looking under the hood. I'm asking some questions that I'm really not even clear on. However, because I ask the questions,
play the game.
They're up on their game, because they're like, oh, this ain't the one. That's right. I'm not the one that you're going to take all the money from and try to be slick with. You need someone else. Just because you ask questions. And I think, you know, as women, right, as people, when you say divorce, it's like a flip of a switch and the worst comes out in us. But what we have to realize, when you take that emotion out, and you right, because a Black woman can cry. We can cry and be thinking at the same time, and what? And
them ugly cries. Them ugly cries, and we are plotting and scheming in the background. Like,
exactly. We have a plan. We're strategizing, but we need to do that same thing when we are going through a divorce. Yeah. So when you take that emotion out, now come on. I had one girlfriend I could call and cuss and scream and carry on. But when it was time for him to pick up the kids, and, you know, he tried to pick an argument with me, and I had to sit there wanting to, like, in the throat. Oh, Lord, yeah. I was like, okay, because, see, you know what I was thinking? You taking these kids today, and you taking the dog. So you can say whatever the hell you want. I'm just going to sit here. But I had to be able to communicate with him, because I had children, and they needed their father. Now, look, people going to say if there's, you know, domestic violence, that's totally different picture. But he was not hurting them in that way. Emotionally, yes, okay. But he, you know, so they needed to be with him. I did not need to sit there telling them that dad was a bad person and talking about him bad, because I'd be sitting back looking, well, you chose him, so how you weren't too smart then either. We got to take accountability for us, right?
Yep.
But it was important to me that they have a relationship with their dad. And they did. And they have thanked me, because once they were adults, which they are now, let me tell you, I want to just acknowledge those some people. Queen Femi came on here. Marvelous by Lily. By Lily Yogi. Bobby. This M creative. That's my bestie. Don't mess with me, because she hurt you. The Alpha and the Omega, day to day. Just everybody. I can't see everybody because a lot of y'all on here, but thank you so much for coming on. Because, you know, you just like to acknowledge people. Because with everything going on, it's nice for somebody to say something nice and to acknowledge you, right? And I don't want this. I've been in some divorce clubs, and when I tell you all they do is witch and moan and talk about them, and I'm like, whew, you come out of there so heavy. No. You have to be on your game. You have to, like, you manifest that you want that man, you know, the next relationship, that baby, that job, that car. You have to manifest you're going to make it out of here, and you have to see that. So you have to strategize and plan. But I'm not going to be there. Woe is me. Oh my gosh. That's for your therapist. I ain't your therapist. I'm not your coach, but I am your strategist, because I'm going to tell you how to get up out of there.
Yeah. And you talked about something that a lot of us don't acknowledge. I have always acknowledged it, that regardless of what caused my marriages to end or whatever, these are marriages I willfully went into.
Right.
With these individuals. And regardless of what story I can come up with, at the end of the day, it was something that I chose, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe that part of that boss up during divorce is taking a moment and saying, okay, I cannot address anything about him. I cannot fix anything about my partner. I can't change anything about my partner. But what I can do is I can look at myself and I can say, okay, how did I get to this point?
Right.
How did I go from being madly in love with this person and feeling like the sun rose and set with this individual, to now I want to send them straight to hell and burn them in holy hellfire? Like, how did that happen? And I believe that that's part of the growth that has to happen. And you don't have time to sit around and listen to everybody else's woe is me's, and like you said, sit in that like mucky, dirty, everybody's just mad space.
Right.
Because it's really not healthy. It's not healthy for you in that moment. It's not healthy for you in your long game of life. It's not going to be healthy for you in future relationships, when all you want to do is focus on the negative of this moment and not pay attention to the opportunity for you to grow. So when it came to you going through this divorce, what is it? I'll use an example, right? I realized, like, in looking back on my relationships, I realized that I myself wasn't choosing appropriate partners. I was not choosing appropriate mates, not only in my marriages, but also later on. I was like, wait a minute, in dating, I'm doing the same thing.
Yes.
I'm making these men pretty. When I say pretty, I'm talking about like I'm seeing all the potential in them as opposed to seeing who they are. So once I started to do that, then I was like, well, you know what? Now I can do better moving forward in any other relationships that I look for. So when it came to you, like, what was it that you stopped and learned about yourself when it came to that specific relationship, and how Trevis Michelle could be better as a woman, as a mother, as a professional, any of the things that could have made you better?
Well, if truth be told, I'm still a work in progress, because I think until I take my last breath, I'm still working on it. Because by nature, I like to make people happy. So that can be a pro and it can be a con. And I'm a registered nurse, right? Oh. And I'm a Black woman. So we're used to caring for everybody else. We're used to making everybody else happy and not caring about myself. So it still took some time. And over the years, I had to learn to say no. Mm-hmm. And so I'll have gaps where I'm not dating for a while, right? Because, you have to deal with your trust issues. But I want to say, too, it's so important that we realize going through a divorce is a loss. You need to go through the grieving process, and we don't allow ourselves to, because we're ready to jump into the next guy, right? Or to the next relationship, next email, if, whoever you partner with. And you don't give yourself an opportunity to be right where you are, to acknowledge it, to like be present, because we're ready to get
in that space, to sit in that space of discomfort.
Right.
We're quick to want to, find the next relationship to satiate that loneliness, that hurt, that abandonment, that disappointment, whatever it is. And now we're so focused on the new relationship that we're not even paying attention to all of the opportunities for us to grow and learn in the healing process of whatever it was that happened all before. So that's part of the bossing up. Is it might not look like bossing up, but it is whenever you just sit back and you're by yourself, because these are things that I have, I myself didn't allow myself to go through. And now I can look back and say, oh, you know what? I should have, because you're right. It is a grieving process, because you have this dream that you get that gets birthed, right? You have the dream of the husband, the kids, the house, the cars, the social life, all these things. And then you get a divorce and that dies, and the thing is you're slowly watching it die. It's not like an abrupt, you know, oh, it's gone, flash, it's over with. You are literally watching it get stabbed to death with every little thing that has to happen, whether it be watching your kids have to be, you know, go between different homes, selling your house, you know, this house that memories were made in with your kids. All of these things that you dream up and they actually happen, now they die because they're all tied to that marriage. You have to sit back and grieve that loss. You have to grieve what is what will be no more. And granted, you know, there are people who have maintained healthy, not only co-parenting relationships, but friendships. They get a divorce and they kind of separate themselves and shake it off a little bit, like you said, get the emotions up out of them, and then they can come back and then they have like this dope friendship and they co-parent. But so your relation, but so you still have your relationship with that person, but you don't have the same relationship that you dreamed up in birth. So yes, everything with that marriage will die, and you have to start all over again. And you got to find that healthy way to actually start over again. You were talking about, you know, how you're a nurse, you're a Black woman, and all that says to me is she's a fixer. She's a fixer, and it's so weird, but that's like that. And I had a conversation with my therapist the other day, and I felt this way, but I think she helped me to kind of clarify it a little bit better. She's like, Tasha, there's nothing wrong with you being who you are. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Right. You just mismanage yourself.
Just like time management, right?
Yes, like exactly. I know what the value that I have. I know I have the capacity to love beyond measure. I know I'm extremely compassionate. I know I can see the best in even the worst of situations, but that does not mean that you hand that over to everybody. It does not mean that all of that you are can be handed over to just anybody. You vet them. You got to make sure that they will take what it is that you give them and recognize the value and the worth of it. So there's nothing wrong with who you are. There's nothing wrong with what you are, but there's something wrong with how you manage who and what you are.
And you know what? And sometimes we just got to be honest and say, I could have done some stuff better, because it's so easy. He did wrong. She did me wrong. But you have to look at, because we all should be looking to be a better person. Because I have some friends, like after their marriage ended, they became bitter, and they carried that bitterness into the next relationship. Then they wanted such lofty ideals set on the next person. Well, he better do this and she better do that. And they didn't spend any time looking at themselves and looking at their craziness and saying, you know, maybe I played a little part in it. How can I be a better me? So when you are going through that divorce process, I don't want women to forget who they are. Still get your hair done, girl. Still get your nails done. That's maintenance. Now, that's not self-care. That's maintenance.
It's maintenance.
But I need you to go and sit in a park and think about it. I want you to start reading. I want you to spend some time with yourself, not just hanging out with the girlfriends. Get to know who you are, because you know what? It's a new chapter. And you can look at it like, I have some freedom to do what I want to do. And we need to have that time before, personally, we need some time before we jump into another relationship. And if you were messing with somebody because you were going through a divorce, I'm going to tell you now, you need to give some space, because you need to have complete freedom so that you can think clearly, so that you can declutter. And also, if you have children, they're watching you. They're watching everything that you do, even when you don't think they are. Later on, they come back and tell you about yourself and what you did. So, you know, it's okay to go through the process, but I just like I said, some of my friends, the next man better do this. And I'm thinking to myself, I love you, but you need to work on you.
Yeah,
Why do you work on you so that you can attract who you should be, who's a good fit for you. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the same, right? Because a key fits in a lock, not a lock in a lock, not a key in a key. Yeah. So he's going to have some things that you don't have, and you're going to have some things that he doesn't have. And we have to give ourselves grace that I'm not perfect. It's okay, right? Forgive yourself. And that's something we don't do going through a divorce. We don't forgive ourselves. You have to forgive yourself so that you can then really love yourself, and you can then forgive him. Because I have the process written down in my book. I'm going to throw that in here.
I was about to say, go ahead, plug it, girl.
My shameless plug here. Click the link in my bio and get it. but I talk about that and the different steps you go through. And that's why I decided I'm also going to do a course. They do a course on everything. Well, we need a course on divorce. 4 weeks, bang it out, and let's see, so that I can $10,000 minimum to be saved. Because there are people walking around $40,000, $50,000, $30,000 for a divorce because they're back and forth and they don't know. And every time you speak to your attorney, they'll give you one little thing. Oh, yeah, you need to get this. So you get that, and they say, oh, did you do that? So every time that's cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Have that hourly rate up.
Yeah, they work for us.
Yep.
Not the other way around.
Nope.
But I can say that my ex-husband, we are tight. I'm one of his healthcare proxies. Now that it didn't come easy.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it didn't.
What I had to be the bigger person. I had to take the high road on several occasions. I had to take an L with material and financial in order to have the W for my kids.
Yeah.
And it was worth it, and I would do it over again. And if I had it to do over, I would marry him again. I just would make sure that I didn't lose myself, that I stood my ground. So it's not like he was the worst person or anything. But when this man can come to me and say, I need to tell you that you are a good mother and you were a good wife, I did something right.
Yeah.
I mean, I did think something, at first I was looking around like, okay, what's going on? Something's going to fall out the tree or whatever, because we were outside when he told me. But for I ain't.
She said, I don't trust it. I don't trust it.
All right. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But the fact that he could do that, that means a lot. And he trusts me. So even when he had a girlfriend, they knew about me. They were like, oh, no, he had to have surgery, rotator cuff surgery. Who do you think went and picked him up? Not his kids. They were like, Ma, you going to pick Dad up? I'm like, where's his woman? Where's she? Where's she at? Where's she be?
Like, that's not my job no more.
Right. And then he tells them, oh, no. And the people didn't even want to give it to. They were like, you're his ex-wife? You sure you want her? He says, no, she's the one taking me home. You know what I mean?
What people miss out on is that just because your marriage does not work out, it doesn't mean that you are a bad person. It doesn't mean that they are a bad person. It doesn't mean that you were a bad wife. It doesn't mean that he was a bad husband. It means that y'all were not good together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like he could be, because some people, they say, well, I was married to him, he was trash when I was married to him. And I can't believe like everything is going great with him and his new wife. Well, because she's not you.
Say it again for the people in the back.
She's not you.
Okay.
That like you said, you got a lock. You need a lock and a key. You probably met up with another lock, and here you are as a lock looking for a key.
Right.
That's not your person. I always use that term because I say that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my person because there's plenty of people out there, right? But I'm looking for my person. So whenever when relationships fail, when marriages fail or whatever, yes, there's some trashy people out there. They just downright trifling and disgusting. But I would like to believe that is not the general consensus of humanity. Majority of us are good people. We have good intentions, but whenever you try and align the wrong people into such a high profile position, and I'm not going to say your marriage or a relationship is high profile. I'm talking about these positions. Marriage, even though mine was short lived, that's work. It is work whenever you are literally taking two individual human beings and putting them together and saying that for the rest of their lives, everything's going to work. Everything's going to be great. And it's like, no, it's not. No, no, it's not. It is going to take work. And sometimes, like, we've all been at different jobs, right? And some people just do not work well together.
Right.
It doesn't change that. I'm a phenomenal professional. You're a phenomenal nurse. But there's probably some nurses or some doctors you just don't. And that's your job. You get to clock out at the end of the day.
Right.
You can't clock out of your marriage.
Right.
You got to deal with that every day. And now at some point you realize that this coworker that I got ain't cutting it. So we're going to have to go ahead and we're going to have to go ahead and let that go. Writing by Winifred says, two good people don't mean compatibility. And that is so true. You can
Right.
be as good as you want to be. You can be your best self. I can be my best self, but that does not mean that we will be great together. If
Right.
sometimes it means that we will be horrible together, because you got two people that's like you were saying just now, right? The next partner that you look for, you may have to be looking for that person that fills in those gaps. So if y'all are both great at the same things, y'all, like, where's the puzzle piece at? Where's the lock and key situation? Y'all are just two locks, two keys walking alongside each other. So
Right. Right.
but
I think we need to give ourselves some grace and be realistic about what we want. And it's okay that your marriage didn't work out. You're still a good person. It does not, and you're not a failure.
No.
It just means that this didn't work out.
Yep.
Right? You have an opportunity to try it again. I'm just asking that you take a moment to know yourself first, spend a little time with yourself first, and don't treat a boyfriend like a husband. And don't treat, a buddy, a jump off, like a boyfriend. Now, if that's what you want at that time, cool. But everybody should know their role.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get married because we don't know our role in our marriage.
Yeah.
I knew my role. I had the best people, two of the best in the world, and that was my grandparents. So I knew how to be a good wife. I knew how to be a good mother. I knew how to keep the house clean, go along and shut my mouth at times, but then be supportive of him. What I didn't know was Trevis Michelle.
Yeah.
What I didn't allow to grow was Trevis Michelle. And you know what? Because I got divorced at 6 years old.
Wow.
From my parents. When my parents got divorced, that affected me.
Yeah.
And it made me unrealistic in my dreams, in my reality, right?
Yeah.
And
I think that's a lot of us.
Me.
I think that's a lot of us, especially in the Black community. We don't necessarily have, and I think we're getting there, but we don't necessarily have these views into healthy marriages like we should. We don't see, a lot of us didn't see what a genuinely healthy marriage and how it functions and what that looks like. Because like you said, yes, I know how to do all of these things. I know how to cook. Right. I know how to clean. I know how to, do my womanly duties with my husband. I know all these things. But whenever it comes to, like you said, to being able to grow as a wife and how to be supportive as a wife, how to, cover as a husband, a lot of us don't know these things. So we're sitting there trying to figure it out, because we've watched that volatileness that you, at the age of 6, had to embrace. And you were like, oh no. So you saw worst case scenario and you went all the way off into left field.
Yes, ma'am.
And created, like you said, this unrealistic, blueprint of, no, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be amazing. And that was the first flaw. Expecting, that it was going to be some perfection. And in the process, you probably sat back and, like you said, not only did you not know who Trevis Michelle was, but who she was at that point got lost in the sauce of this life with this other person who was much older than you, who clearly probably had already had himself situated in who he was in his life. Right. And you're trying to figure that out. But we don't have those healthy examples that teach us, this is how you don't get caught up in a marriage. First of all, this is what you look for when you want to get married. That's the first step. Make sure you're looking for somebody who actually is a partner for you, not just somebody that you
communication. Because you might find somebody that you're compatible with as a boyfriend and girlfriend,
and that's it. Period.
But you're not compatible as husband and wife. Yep. Or you're compatible as a jump off, but you're not compatible as a boyfriend and a girlfriend, right? Yep. So we have to know where what we want at certain stages in our life. Yeah. Sometimes, you may not want to get married right now. You just want somebody who's going to be there for you. You stay at your house. I stay at mine. Every now and then I go dirty up your sheets, and stuff dirty up mine. You know what I mean? We got to be realistic.
Oh, trust me. I completely understand because I've spent probably the last 3 years of my life in that space. And prior to that, I was like, I will not ever get married again. However, I don't like when people say I'm horrible at relationships. No, that just means that
No.
you have not met the person that 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 encourages you to be your best you in those situations. You know, people use that statement all the time. Oh, I'm terrible in relationships. No,
Because they haven't spent time with themselves.
Yep.
Spend some time to get to know you. You will not ever say you're horrible, because
Yes.
you're not horrible. You are a queen. You are worthy and you deserve to be loved.
Yes.
But the first step is you have to believe that, and you have to love yourself. So don't let that come out your mouth again about you're horrible at relationships. Now, you might be horrible at cooking, but you're not horrible at relationships, because most of the times we want a healthy relationship, so that we can't be manifesting that I'm horrible at it.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong. I believe in marriage. So even though I am a divorce strategist, I believe in the sanctity of marriage. I truly do.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't work,
be ready.
I believe that you need to have a strategy to get the heck up out of there. So, okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, hey, like I said earlier when we were talking about the prenups, I'm not saying be set up to fail, but I am saying be prepared, be ready. So, you know, the idea of, you know, speaking these things into existence is so true. Don't sit here and talk about, you know, what all the negative stuff, because the world will continue to remind you of all the negative things, but Absolutely. You can't sit around and do that for yourself. And then whenever you're sitting here, you have no idea of who you are, but yet you're expecting somebody else to come and walk alongside you in life. And how are you going to let them know who you are?
You see this? I brought this here intentionally. I drink water. I don't drink. But do you see this? Do you see it? This is all gold with the Swarovski crystal.
Swarovski crystal.
Okay. I'm here out here talking to y'all with my little dog sitting over here, Steeler. Okay. Sipping on my glass of water.
Stay hydrated.
Because I am a queen.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a man here in order to make things pretty. Yeah. I don't have to have somebody else present. My grandmother taught me, when my grandfather did pass, you make things pretty for yourself. So I have this on my table. I drink out of it. I don't sit and look at it. I drink out of it because, see, I'm treating myself as a queen. Yes. Because when that king steps into my presence, he will recognize me and I will recognize him. Yeah. But we can't, you know, and this is what, when you asked me before, what have I learned? I've learned to treat myself as the queen that I am, that all of you on here are, and the men, you have to treat yourselves as kings, so that when the queen walks, she recognizes, right? Yeah. Like recognizes like BS can recognize BS. Well, like recognizes like.
Yeah.
So you got to set it up.
Hey, these are conversations that, you know, I've had with even, you know, my good friends, a guy friend. He literally told me, he's like, you know, you spend so much time taking these, you know, aluminum cans out of a ditch and saying, "Ooh, I can make that pretty and shine it up and make it look like a beautiful centerpiece." This is what I've done in my relationships. It's not saying that these men were trash. It's just that they were not compatible for me. Right. And I take them and it's like, "Oh, it's pretty." But at the end of the day, it's still a busted aluminum can underneath it. So I started looking back on my relationships, and yes, I'm going to give a little humble brag right now. I was like, these dudes were awesome when they were with me. Like, what happened? You know what happened? They don't have me. Right. I was spending so much time, effort, and energy pouring into them and, you know, making them shiny and pretty and new.
And because they were sucking it dry.
And nobody was pouring into me. Nobody was pouring into me. And so the reason I bring that up right now is what you were talking about is treat yourself, right? So all of that energy that I've put into my partners, all of that effort that I've given out elsewhere into these dead spaces of, you know, romantic interactions, I took that back and I started saying, you know what? I'm just gonna give to me. I'm gonna give everything to me. I'm gonna do everything for me. Like, I've always been a chick who takes herself out to fancy dinners. I've always been a chick who will spend money on myself. I've always been that person. But I'm talking about that emotional bandwidth. I'm talking about that hope, that, you know, expectation, those aspirations. Instead of me pouring that into these dead spaces of romanticism and relationships, I started pouring all of that stuff into myself. And what I've realized is that now I'm even more upset, as if it was possible. I'm even more obsessed with myself and recognizing who I am as a person. And that's even in my flaws and my frailties. Me recognizing that these are the areas where I'm weak in life, and I will continue to try and grow and be better. And even as I grow and try to be better, but I'm still a boss on the other side of all of this. I'm still amazing. I'm still great. I still have amazing capacity within me. So I'm not going to act like that doesn't exist. But while I'm living my life, I'm not going to worry about who comes along, because like you said, he's going to notice me along the way.
Right.
While I'm living my life, while I am pouring into me, while I am giving me to me, he's going to notice those things. So I don't have to worry about, oh, well, what if I don't give him the time of day? He'll already see that, you know, this is somebody who is taking care of herself. And if she takes care of herself like that, imagine how she's going to take care of herself and me together. So I'm not going to diminish, you know, what I am or who I am. I took the time to recognize all the missteps that I made. I'm not going to say mistakes because I don't like that word, but I noticed all of the missteps that I made along the way. And now I'm saying, okay, well, now I need to do better. And I'm also going to pay attention to all the things that's still amazing about me. Right. And look forward to, if it does happen. If it doesn't happen, I'm cool with that too, because I'm enjoying my company.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, girl, I want it to happen. It's going to happen for me. I ain't putting nothing negative about that, about what it will be happening. Okay. Because I'm single right now, but you know, I'm doing my healing, because during the pandemic, I broke up with someone after taking them back twice.
Yeah.
Because of, you know, you believe what they say. And I'm not knocking them, because it was something within me. I chose to ignore certain things. Yeah. I chose to live with certain things. And once I said, I'm done, I'm done.
D-U-N.
But you know what? I'm I'm able to love. I'm still able to care. I don't have to badmouth him. I definitely don't badmouth black men. And you know what? I'm like, okay, well, that's all right, because I still have to take care of me. Yeah. And that's why, girl, you don't know what it was like for me to get here tonight. I ride 7 miles to work.
On your bike.
And then I work my shift and I ride 7 miles back. And I was able to keep these eyelashes on, because it was hailing. On my 7 mile ride home, it started hailing. It started snowing. We had some sleet. And then it's on my 7 mile ride home.
Listen, you see, I work out, you know, I work out 6 days a week, but I'm inside. Kudos to you, girl, because ain't no way I'm going to be, I mean, obviously, if I'm already out there, if I done already made the 7 mile trek there, I got to make it back. Right. I've been looking on my app like, okay, Apple, what are we saying the weather is looking like? Because I would have been like, oh, you know what? Where's Uber? Like, I would have to call somebody, because I'm not setting myself up for that. But that's, you know, that speaks into it, right? Like, I appreciate and I love the fact that you are taking care of yourself, you know, while you're waiting for the relationship that will happen, because I'm going to go ahead and speak in alignment with you.
That's right. He might even be on here looking in the replay. I don't know.
He might be, but nonetheless, like you're not staying in that space of, you know, the heartbreak that happened with the last relationship.
Right.
But you continue to just grow and build upon yourself. So whenever he does show up, you're ready for him. You know, that you've spent time with yourself. You spent time loving on yourself, acknowledging the beauty of yourself, and looking forward to the next relationship. Girl, you got your people showing up.
I have to say hi to my Tilted Crown squad, because they are in the house. I already said hi to my bestie, but the Tilted Crown squad, it's a group of 10 women, and we have each other's back, and we are positive. And when one's down, the other one's here. We're called Tilted Crown because sometimes that crown is hanging off, and you know, like right here. And we straighten that thing up. Crown. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge them, because they mean so much to me. And when I was even going through my breakup, and I was writing a book, and I'm writing about divorce. Ain't that something? I'm writing a book about divorce, and I'm going through a breakup at the same time. That was snotting, crying stuff. Okay. Right. So y'all know I put myself in there. But you know, it was very good. And that's another thing. We have, as we're going through the divorce, it's really important to find that thing that you like. Find that activity that's healthy that you like to do. I love watching your transformation, you know, working out. Cause I'm like, girl, you know, and people sit up there. Literally, I had on my snow boots when I with my uniform. Everybody, patients, doctors, nurses, why you wear snow boots today? It's sunshiny outside. I said, because I ride 7 miles on my bike to work and 7 miles home. They looked at me because it didn't register. And they're like, you have a motorcycle? I was like, no, my thighs. That's my motor, my thighs, okay? And my calves.
But that's why when you said it, I had to make sure people understood bicycle. Like,
bicycle,
she's not talking
right?
about riding a scooter. She's not talking about riding a motorcycle. I love that you said that. My thighs are my motor.
That's
my thighs is what's gonna get me there.
What?
But one of the best compliments that I've gotten probably over the last, especially like when I tell you I've been cleaning house, like the men that I have been entertaining during that last season of my life, because now I'm at a place where I'm like, you know what? Okay, my girls are getting ready to graduate. I actually need my person, right? So I've been cutting everybody off. Just I'm not just blocking them or whatever, but if they reach out, I have a conversation and say, hey, look, you know, our season is done. Godspeed, sir. Bless you. You know, thank you for your service. Send you on your way. But you know, I've had some conversations with my friends and they're like, oh my God, girl, you're glowing. Somebody just said that to you. And I believe that that is one of the best compliments that we can get, is that when they say that you're glowing, is because that's something, it's not about, oh, you're pretty. It's not about you got on something nice. It's something that's coming from inside of you, that's radiating through you, that's shining, and people catch that. So obviously, whatever it is that you're doing during this season of life is great, because the people around you are saying, hey, girl, you are glowing.
That's like, one of the Tilted Crown squad. That's one of the squad. Yoni Spot, the Dope Life Coach, Boss Hair Labs up in here. That's my peeps, you know. But we keep each other going. Yeah. And that's important, that circle when you're going through a divorce or even a breakup. If the trifling ones, now you may need to keep them because you might have to put on your black. You know, I'm not saying you do something, but I'm just saying they
might come in handy. Just know every friend has a purpose.
Right. But you know, you really need to have those people around you who are supporting you. And it's important to know that those that you thought were your friends may not really be your friends, because they're going to take sides. And that's what I teach, you know, as a strategist. Like, look, you thought that was your friend, but they really wanted him, or they were friends with him. And so you're talking to him. They're going back and telling him. Yeah. I was being interviewed to be on a podcast, in fact. And this young lady said, oh, my neighbor is looking over the fence or whatever. I saw them because, you know, of course, we started talking about her divorce. Yeah. She was $40,000 in and wasn't finished. And I said to her, well, you said that, you know, you might want to move. You might want to sell the house since you're already talking about it, because the neighbors will going back and telling him everything. And we don't think about that, right? Yeah. I had my phone tapped. How much mileage on my car. We don't think about that. So
I'm feeling unloved. My exes didn't do none of that stuff. Like, what, did y'all even care? Y'all just stalk me, maybe because they know I'm not wrapped too tight, and I am the ratchet friend. I'm the one that, like, I will fight back. So that might be why they didn't do anything crazy. But that's a lot of people actually don't think about that. And I think if I was to have a conversation in divorce, or like referencing divorce, I wouldn't even think to talk about that stuff. That you really have to pay attention to the people that you're talking to, because I feel like whenever I would say my second divorce, I think that was the biggest one, because like you said, you know, everything looked great. You know, everything was great until it wasn't. We had the houses, the cars, the great social life, social circle. Everybody knew us. We had that life, right? But then, like, whenever we split up, it was obvious, like, you know, he got custody of some friends. Right. And I got custody of other ones. So,
absolutely.
And there the twain shall meet, you know, so it was a clear delineation. But in some situations, if there's not that line that's built, then yeah, you sitting there basically, you consorting with the enemy. Whenever you sitting there pouring your heart and soul out to somebody, meanwhile, they running right back over to your ex, like.
And you even the dog, right? You fighting over the dog. when you do your prenup, you should
Child.
put in who keeps the dog. See,
Yes.
stealer, you know, because they don't be cheap, but people will fight over a dog.
Yeah. No, well,
So
just know if I
yeah,
get
I
into
also
a situation, Cleo is staying with me because she was with me to begin with, so she's staying with me.
Okay.
Like, now we ain't fighting about that. That will go in the prenup. That whatever we came into the deal with, that's what we leaving with, to include Cleo. Dang it, you ain't taking my dog.
The Dope Life Coach says, work on being your own friend first so you can identify the type of friends you need. And she has learned to be extra good to herself first. Right. And, you know, some people don't, you know, and that's great, but some people don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because they never had anyone show them. And then they watch certain, you know, media.
Yeah.
They still don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And I always tell people, when you look at Jerry Springer and Housewives of Atlanta, it's true life. It's not fake. I lived in hot Atlanta, so I can tell you I knew people. And working in an ER, I had actually some people from Jerry Springer come to the emergency room because they got sick while they were here. And I questioned them. So the things that we see on television, they happen in real life, but using it as fun, as an outlet, but not as an example of how you want your life to be.
Yeah.
Because we are queens, we are kings out here, and we have to walk in our power. We have to stand up for who we are, not for what someone else wants us to be or who they think we should be.
Yeah. Well, Trevis Michelle, I don't want to, because I feel like, you know, last time we went for like an hour and a half, 2 hours or something like that. I think Instagram cut off on us and we came back again. But I want to say thank you so much for coming. Of course, as we get ready to close out, there are some people who came on who weren't here in the beginning. I want to make sure that you take the time right now to go ahead and remind people of who you are, what you stand for. If you do have any products, any services, make sure you plug that, let people know how they can reach you, how they can contact you, all that fun stuff. So the floor is yours, madame.
You know what? Number one, I want to thank you, Queen, for having me on here. We started out during the thick of the pandemic when nobody was going outside. We were all in here in New York and we connected. And a true friendship, it lasted. So I thank you. I've seen you grow and I just want to acknowledge that. All right. You are beautiful and thank you for that. But I'm Trevis Michelle, so if this is a replay, you get to hear it again. And if you're here live, you get to see it now because I am all about that life of treating yourself well. So I am an international best-selling author of Saving Lives While Fighting for Mine. You can click the link in my bio and get a copy of it. I share my life of a Black woman going through the divorce process. You don't have to come out traumatized, beat down, bitter, evil, bleeding all over everybody. But you do have to know how to strategize while you're going through it. You can talk to a therapist but afterwards. But if you want to know how to strategize, if you want the blueprint, you need to know those questions to ask the attorney, how to vet the attorney, how to, you know, get the tools that you need to get through this divorce. And I am the one that you need to talk to. Because let me tell you something, this is chess. This ain't checkers. And what happens on the board? The queen protects the king, doesn't she? She protects the board. So you have to walk through this process healing, empowered, confident, so that you can live the rest of your life on your terms because it's a new chapter in your life. I am a registered nurse by trade. My profession, I am in New York City. I love cycling. I love people. I love me some Black man. So don't think because I'm a divorce strategist now that, oh, I'm one of the, don't come through here like that. It ain't working. But if you would like to text 21,000, text PEARLS, PEARLS to 21,000 and receive daily inspirational quotes, do that. Look for my launch of my divorce strategy Boss Up course, so that you can be in the know, you can decrease the money, you can have fun. And I just am happy to be here today. And these eyelashes stayed on these 14 miles in the snow. Girl, and everything today. So I'm quite happy.
So that means that today was a great day.
It
That
was
was
a
a great
great
day.
day.
But I appreciate you allowing me to end my day on this note. It was a great conversation. I appreciate you sliding through. For those of y'all who are on here who are not following Trevis Michelle, make sure you go ahead and go to her profile, click follow, because she does have a lot of great content that comes off of her feed. So go there. But as per usual, Trevis, thank you. Trevis Michelle, thank you for showing up. And those of y'all who joined in, thank y'all as well. And I will see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.